There's been a lot of movement, a lot of talk about DOGE, and you're seeing headlines. And I had to ask you, what does this mean? What do they actually mean when you hear a headline like DOGE enters the IRS? That was like breaking news. It was coming in overnight that this was happening from sources saying, hey, this is happening. The Pentagon, DOGE enters the Pentagon. This is both physical and theoretical at the same time.
That's right. So what you're looking at here is the team from DOGE will go into the agencies, and they're, in layman's terms, they're effectively conducting an audit. So they're going into the IRS. The IRS is getting a little bit of a taste of their own medicine by the teams going in there, reviewing the spending, reviewing the contracts, reviewing the outlays, and looking for signs of waste, fraud, and abuse, or just inefficiency. We know the IRS is inefficient. They still use typewriters and fax machines to conduct a lot of their business. So they're looking for these areas where things can be made better, costs can be cut, where there's programs that don't line up with the president's agenda and the administration's agenda, and that's what they're doing. Last night, they went to the IRS and physically went into the building so they can get into the systems, the storage that's there as far as like the data and things of that nature, because these things are stored on site at the headquarters. And then today, they're going over to the Pentagon, which Secretary Hegseth had said, we welcome DOGE to the Pentagon. This is a very exciting time because we have long decried the wasteful spending and the reckless spending and out of control spending of these federal bureaucracies. The entire Tea Party movement started because they were taxed enough already. They were seeing wasteful, inefficient spending, and the government continued to tax more and more. So this is a long time coming for these federal bureaucracies from those conservatives that have always been fiscal conservatives, concerned about the way the budgets of the U.S. government keep spiraling out of control, snowballing, and even that was back in 2010. 15 years ago, I don't think a fiscal conservative could have imagined how out of control the spending has been in Washington, D.C. When you look at the budget of the Pentagon, it's $800 billion. We're getting close to $1 trillion budget. It's 12% of the total federal budget. So now, look, it's a big chunk of where our money goes.
And of all the places, you would like the Pentagon, you would like our defense to be well funded.
Right. And they are very well funded. Yeah. But here is the problem. They failed their 7th audit in a row last year at the Pentagon. So they can't even account for where all this money is going. We have seen all these stories about how the unaccounted for money that was sent to Ukraine, that, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars have gone probably to grift in that country, to corruption, of taking it. It's not going where it actually was meant to go. What Pete Hegseth said, and I want to point people to this, during his confirmation hearing, was he said, as I've said to you in many of our private meetings, when President Trump chose me for this position, the primary charge he gave me was to bring the warrior culture back to the Department of Defense. He, like me, wants a Pentagon laser-focused on warfighting, lethality, meritocracy, standards, and readiness. That's it. That's my job. When you have a bureaucracy, which is what the Pentagon is, that has failed 7 audits in a row, meaning they can't account for where all of this $800 billion is going, then you have a culture problem. And that is what Pete Hegseth is tasked with changing, making the military focused back on protecting America and the relationship with many of the contractors that continually build things for the government and continually bill them for projects. It's out of control.
The ACLJ is involved. We've got a new filing that just happened.
That's right. We filed 3 briefs on Wednesday of this week, 2 of which were about the funding freeze, 1 of which was specifically about DOGE. We have a second one today that we have filed about DOGE as well.
This is our 4th case this week.
That's right. So what these all are related because it's all about President Trump's ability to direct the executive branch to follow the policy and the prerogatives of this president. And the left special interest groups are all fighting back. Our brief has been accepted by 3 out of the 4 judges, 2 in D.C., one in New York. Our lawyers have worked very hard, and the one in D.C. that we filed today that was on the funding freeze was accepted immediately. Also related to spending, on Monday of this week, our attorneys filed a brief at the Supreme Court of the United States, a case there that is arguing whether or not states can defund Planned Parenthood. When they receive federal dollars, do they have discretion at which groups get these Medicaid dollars, these federal funds? Can they decide not to give it to Planned Parenthood? Planned Parenthood obviously is trying to say, no, you cannot discriminate against us and not give us money, but the states want to have that flexibility with the federal dollars that come in if they want to defund Planned Parenthood themselves.
And I think it's pretty enlightening for a lot of Americans to see what we're wasting money on and how you can get involved and actually make changes within organizations that do maybe need to exist in some form. I don't know if the IRS needs to exist in the form it's in right now, but you understand why there are these departments, but the waste is out of control.
Absolutely. So for too long, all American people have been squirming under the arbitrary bureaucratic power of the IRS. America's most feared agency has been the IRS. Now it's the IRS's turn to squirm under the scrutiny of DOGE. And all American people have never been happier. During the last campaign, the Democrats said that our democracy was at risk. And now we are seeing, first and foremost, that yes, our democracy is at risk when Article 3 judges ignore the Article 2 power of the President of the United States.
They've gone after Christian organizations. They've gone after people that lean right politically. So it was a department that was infected with politics and using one of the most scary powers of the government, the ability to get in and mess with your finances, to either imprison you or audit you or all of these things that the IRS has the power to do. We've had to fight head on with the IRS, but now they're getting a taste of the medicine they have been giving to the American people by having an audit. And the left wants you to think that every bureaucracy, every dollar in that bureaucracy is essential. And we know that isn't the case.
We can now finally see what is under the hood of the IRS, and I think it will ultimately prove very, very ugly.